You are listening to the Vincast, Australia's #1 podcast that profiles people who work in the wine industry. As a completely free of charge podcast, the Vincast relies on the support of its listeners, and support is very easily given. Simply tell someone that you know who loves wine or works in a wine industry that doesn't know about the podcast all about it, and tell them to have a listen. You can also support the podcast by going to the iTunes page for the Vincast, subscribing to the podcast so you get the newest episodes as soon as they become available, and also leaving a 5-star rating and review, like Don't Mess with the Sprouts did recently. And I very much agree that Jim Chatto would be a fantastic guest. So, Jim, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on the show. But thanks, guys, for listening to this week's episode, and hope you enjoy. On episode 99 of the Vincast, I chat with Lawrence and Tim Scanlon, the brother team behind Dirty Black Denim wines. Hello there, Vincasters. Welcome to another episode of the Vincast. My name is James Guestbrook, otherwise known as the Intrepid Wino, and here we are, episode 99. Just one more episode to go until I hit 100. I am so thrilled to have got to this point. Thank you so much to everyone who's been with me along the road, and thanks to all the new listeners as well. I love hearing from people, so please do get in contact with me at thevincast@gmail.com or any of the social media platforms, because, you know, I've always got lots and lots of exciting plans, and hopefully I'll have lots of great guests coming up soon. And I'm very excited to share with you that my guest for episode 100 will be Gil Dupury from Yeringberg Wines. A really important personal episode for me because Yeringberg made my epiphany wine. I had the 1997 Yeringberg Pinot Noir many years ago, and that basically cemented my decision to work in the wine industry. So I'm really thrilled to meet with Gil and have him share a really important part of Yarra Valley history on episode 100. But stay tuned for that one. For this week, I've actually got a couple of guys, two brothers, Lawrence and Tim, who are behind Dirty Black Denim Wines. They're really getting a lot of attention for their wines here in Melbourne, and I'm really excited about what they have in store for the future. I've tasted a few of the wines myself, and they're really great. So Lawrence and Tim joined me on the show recently, and they chatted about their background. Please stick around to the end of the episode so you can find out how to get in touch with the guys and myself. But until then, I'll see you on the other side. Well, I'm joined in the Vincast headquarters today with two guests. Very, very close, of course, and it is Lawrence and Tim from Dirty Black Denim. Guys, thank you for joining me today and for coming and sharing the story. Of course, I would assume for most of the story it's going to be reasonably connected, but there might be a couple of points where we veer off into other areas, so we'll have to swap the microphone back and forth. But I guess I'll ask each of you, as
Sure.
I normally do at the start of each episode, can you remember if there was a moment in your lives where you kind of thought about wine in a different way that you think that's where, you know, it started the path into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I definitely had, I guess, 3 times where I've kind of had wine really change my perspective. When I was living in New South Wales, I was really unsure with what I was going to do with my life, and I started hanging around with a few people that were working in vineyards and working in wineries, and I'd always been working in bottle shops and things like that. And when I kind of decided what I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life, talking with those guys and hanging out with them, like, I really looked at it quite seriously, and that's when I decided to go and study winemaking. But in terms of wines that I've drunk, I think the first time I drank a Radicon was when I really realized that wine could be something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just necessarily about oak or ripeness or Shiraz or anything like that. That it can be something else.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I guess from a winemaking perspective, it was the first time I drank a Dagenau. Really, really kind of
A Didier
shaped me.
Dagenau,
Yeah,
as opposed
Didier
to a Serge
Dagenau.
Dagenau.
They're good too.
Yeah.
Just like the texture and acid and freshness and everything about it.
Minerality.
It was just alive.
What about you, Tim?
I guess it started with hanging out with Lawrence and his friends who were into wine, and just trying different things, and then finding about orange wines and stuff that's a bit different. Like that white wines can have that texture and that tannin, and you can experiment with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of opened it up for me more than anything else.
Oh, okay. So where did you guys grow up?
In Toowoomba, Queensland. So
Really?
Yeah.
Toowoomba. So was wine something that was around when you were younger? Did your parents drink much wine?
Our parents drank wine, but it was never anything quite serious.
Mm.
We were never really exposed to wine or fine wine or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, it was in the house, but it was a huge thing. There was definitely a cask always in the fridge.
Right. So
Coolabah, I think, was Mum's poison. Yeah.
Coolabah, good old Coolabah. That's all right. Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Better than what are West Coast coolers?
Oh yeah, they were great spritzers.
So when you were sort of growing up, and then kind of finishing high school, did you sort of what did you kind of think about doing as far as a career at that point? What were you interested in?
I went straight to university after school, and I studied politics and international relations.
Really?
Yeah.
Whereabouts was that?
In Toowoomba at USQ.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then I tried to get out of Toowoomba as quickly as possible. So when I was 18, I moved down to Brisbane.
Right. Okay. What were you doing down in Brisbane?
I was working in bottle shops, and I just transferred universities.
Okay.
So I went down to Griffith University to keep studying that.
Which is the one that is the university that's on the Botanic Gardens? Is that the University of Queensland?
Oh, QUT.
QUT.
Yeah.
Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous campus.
Yeah, right in the city.
Was there any reason you were sort of working in bottle shops? Was that just that's where a job was?
Yeah, good work when you're at university.
Yeah, okay.
You can work a bit different hours. I didn't have to work in a bar, which is nice. I didn't have to work late nights.
Yeah, some weekends, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's how I sort of got my start. So, and that's how I got interested in wine. So, did you get interested in wine at all working in bottle shops?
Yeah, not straight away. At first, it was just a job, something to get paid. But
yeah.
I think after probably 2-3 years,
staff discount on the booze.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cheap beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, after a couple of years, I really started to enjoy learning more about the wines that we had, which is pretty easy when you're working at one of the really, really big chains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all kind of the same.
Yeah. And as far as your studies, did you continue along the same kind of path, or were you studying something different at that point?
Yeah, I did. I transferred to psychology.
Really?
Yeah. Our dad was a psychologist.
Oh, okay.
He was a child psychologist, actually. For most of his life.
Yeah.
Because I just...
That must have been fun for the two of you.
Yeah.
Did he ever like mess with you a bit? And
yeah,
sort of pitch you
he
against each
used
other
to, when
like
friends
that?
would come over, he'd say, "Now, don't lie to me. I'm a psychologist. I can read your mind." I think my friends believe that at a young age.
Yeah, it's surprising. I think my younger sister is she's doing a PhD in psychology, but I think she's been able to read my mind since long before that. Okay, cool. So when did you start to get interested in wine? Were you drinking much wine at all? Or were you
definitely in Brisbane. I was drinking a lot of wine, but it was pretty silly, really. Like trying to find the best clean skin that we could and trying to, the best wines we could get for sub $10.
Okay.
I was pretending to take it seriously, I guess.
But it was actually bottled wine, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was bottled wine. Sure.
What do you call it? Goon bag roulette or goon
fortune? Yeah. Oh, there was definitely some of that going on.
Yeah,
sure. For me, I started to get really serious about it when I moved to New South Wales. I moved to a small town called Bowral, which is in the Southern Highlands. Yep. So quite a small wine region, but
it's not that far southern. So it's not that far south of the border.
It's pretty much in between Canberra and Sydney.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, really close to Sydney.
Southern Highlands. I was thinking, what's the one in Queensland where the wines come from?
Granite Belt.
Granite Belt. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been dying to get up there. It seems pretty exciting.
Yeah.
It's cold and elevated.
Yeah, really interesting.
Mm.
So what were you doing in Bowral?
My girlfriend at the time was from there. Just wanted to change from Brisbane, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So I was working at one of the really, really big chains
Mm-hmm.
down there, not really doing much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I think I was 24 at the time, and I thought, I've got to do something with life. And my friends that I was down there with were very, very heavily interested in wine and involved in wine, and I started to meet a few winemakers and vit guys, and it started to get quite serious for me.
Mm. So meanwhile, Tim, what were you doing? What was your sort of path? Did you have different interests? You know, what were your studies around?
Well, after I left school, I just floated around for a couple of years I did a bit of chefing, a bit of bar work.
Oh, okay.
And then went into landscaping and construction sort of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I did that for a number of years, and then came to Melbourne and I was doing scaffolding, and I got a bit sick of that and ended up getting a job in a vineyard, working out at Galley. So
Was that before or after Lawrence kind of got interested in wine?
after, yeah, I think.
Man, you just raced through your entire story. Well, as far as like doing like landscaping and stuff like, did you kind of like working outside?
Yeah, that was why I moved from working in a kitchen to landscaping, to be outside a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty, any kind of commercial kitchen, whether it's, you know, top end fine dining or whether it's, you know, a pub or something like that. It's a pretty, you know, high energy, you know, really hot, sweaty, you know, frantic kind of environment to be in. So I can imagine after a while you just go, I just want to get outside and, you know, it's, you know, nice and quiet and I just focus on the work sort of thing. Is that sort of what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I did enjoy the fast-paced kitchen sort of atmosphere. It was kind of fun. You don't really have time to think. You just sort of do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was mostly just to get back outside and get some fresh air and some sunlight.
Yeah. When you were younger, growing up, I guess it's probably for both of you. Did you like, you know, being outside and sort of exploring? Toowoomba, I'm sure, is, you know, pretty beautiful part of the world, and you know, you've got beautiful ocean here. You got beautiful. I mean, how far south is it? Rainforest and stuff. That's much further north, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's more bush.
Yeah, mostly bush and agricultural out in Toowoomba and surrounding suburbs.
Yeah.
But then it's only 2-3 hours to the Sunshine Coast, and about the same to the Gold Coast.
Were you encouraged to have a very, you know, outdoors sort of lifestyle and interests? Did you play much sport or that kind of thing?
Yeah, we both played soccer when we were quite young, and then ended up playing rugby union for a few years. And yeah, and we lived across the road from an oval, so that was always good.
Yeah.
As kids, we just used to get shipped off to the oval and run around and kick footballs, and hit golf balls around and stuff like that.
And so when you were working in kitchens and hospitality, were you that interested in wine at all? Were you just sort of like, I just go with the flow as far as, you know, the stuff you were drinking?
Did you guys even stock wine?
No, not so much wine. I was drinking a lot of beer and getting into the spirits a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of, for me, that sort of evolved into wine.
Yeah, okay.
And like, yeah.
But being, you know, working as a chef, and did you kind of, were you interested in sort of what you were drinking, and maybe, I'd like to drink better quality or more interesting beers and more interesting spirits, that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was still in Toowoomba, so again, it was a bit harder to find that sort of stuff, like more interesting stuff, but...
Better quality Bundaberg?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that classic joke that we tell, you know, why do Queenslanders call their beer 4X? Because they don't know how to spell beer.
I don't think I've actually heard that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's terrible. It's a dad joke.
That's good.
Yeah.
I actually didn't mind it. I remember it was 4X Draft, I think it was.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was good beer.
Stop making it.
Yeah. Better than New South Wales beers too. Ugh, that's terrible. I mean, much better than, you know, all the CUB. Anyway, let's move off slagging big beer brands. And so eventually you came down to Well, so yeah, so how did he convince you to come down to Victoria? I guess let's jump back to Lawrence, because we still haven't got to how he got down to Melbourne. So you started hanging out with more people in the wine industry when you were in Bowral.
Yeah, and I guess I realised that it was something that I really wanted to do seriously.
Mm-hmm.
When I was trying to work out what I wanted to do, I nearly joined the army at that point, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I would have been the worst in the army.
Different path.
Yeah. And I didn't. So again, yeah, I was weighing up what to do with life, and I think I got to the point where I wanted wine to be what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's when I enrolled in a degree down here and moved.
Right. Okay.
And it all happened within the space of 2 months between applying, getting in, coming down.
And you sort of thought you thought about what specifically you could do in the industry. You kind of knew, I want to head towards being a winemaker.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty average at science, so when I enrolled, I kind of thought maybe I'd do that and add in some business courses. But once I got down here and started doing the winemaking courses and the Vic courses, I loved it. In particular, the winemaking side. I think Tim's probably a little bit more Vic focused than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, really enjoyed the winemaking side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to play and experiment. And
so as far as your life at that point, was it an easy transition to make to come down to Melbourne?
Yeah, I literally threw all my clothes in the car, drove down, done.
Where did you study?
NMIT.
Right, which is now Melbourne Polytechnic.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
How did you did you finish that, or did you sort of?
I'm about a year shy of finishing.
Okay.
But yeah, I left.
How did you find the experience? And Tim, you studied the Vit side of things. How did you both find the experience of studying winemaking and viticulture in that kind of environment?
Yeah, I loved it.
Having sort of not much of a background apart from knowing that you loved wine and certainly liked drinking wine.
Yeah, I mean, it was really challenging. A lot of the courses, when we got heavy into the science, it was just so far away from everything I'd ever done. So I found it really tough.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually being at uni, it was great. I just learnt so much off the bat from the get-go. And I met so many great people. We were really quite lucky with the course or the year that I enrolled in. A lot of my good friends are now winemakers with their own labels or working at really cool places. So,
were people coming from a lot of different backgrounds? Were there people of different ages and stuff like that as well?
Oh, in my year, it was mostly people around my age. In their mid-20s. There were a few older guys and a handful of younger people, but most of the people in my class were of the same age, roughly.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the fact that a lot of the guys, a number of people that you studied with at that time. Who are all late 20s, early 30s, that kind of thing. It's great because they're all sort of starting their own brand. Do you think that that's a really interesting thing that's been happening in the wine industry of late? That it's a lot easier, freer to sort of start something. There's more grapes available to just buy, and you find somewhere to make it, and you just slap a label on it, and that's my wine. Whereas in the past, it was much more of you have to buy land and you have to plant a vineyard and you have to build a winery, and you have to wait several years before the vineyards producing good quality fruit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you'd have to have a winery as well.
Yeah,
I guess contract winemaking on small scale wasn't a thing. We're lucky to have come in at a time where people have already done that. They've kind of blazed the trail a little bit, and a lot of it's right place, right time for us, for sure.
It's something I was saying just the other day, that it's a really interesting thing that's happening in the industry where you have a winemaker, someone who is considered to be a great winemaker who might have their own brand, and a wine business is more than happy to employ them. And part of the contract is that I can use the space, the facilities to make my own wine as well. And they say, that's fine as long as you make our wine as fantastic as possible.
I mean, it can be tricky. A lot of people I know that have been working full-time in wineries or vineyards and trying to make that wine there, it does create tension, or can create tension with some places. It hasn't really happened for us. We've been pretty lucky, but I know for a lot of other people it's caused problems.
Right. As far as before and then kind of, as you started the studies, did you have much opportunity to head out to wine regions and visit vineyards and kind of, meet some people in the industry and get influenced at all by that?
Not massively. When I was living in Bowral, I did get a chance to go out and see places. But
so, is there a wine region there, or what part of?
I don't know if there's a GI there, but they call it the Southern Highlands.
Right. Okay.
It's actually a really quite cool place to grow grapes. It's super elevated. It's really, really cold. I'm not really too sure on what soil profile they've got up there. I think it changes quite a bit depending where you are. But there are vineyards over 1,000 meters above sea level up there.
Mm-hmm. Is there much wine that comes out of that area?
That's not a huge region. There's a fair bit.
How far away from like Canberra district, that kind of thing? Is it relatively close?
40 minutes maybe from the north end of the Canberra district, maybe a bit more. Okay.
So it's sort of classified as cool-ish climate?
Yeah, very cold. A lot of places regularly seem to lose crops from frost.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's changing now as everything's getting a bit warmer.
Are they quite parochial as far as what they drink? Do they drink a lot of local stuff in that area?
No, it's still kind of a country town, A lot of people there are still just kind of drinking Barossa and Shiraz and Valley Semillon and the big ones.
Again, as long as they're drinking wine.
Yeah, totally. I never really saw much local wine around when I was there.
Okay.
A little bit of a shame.
So at that time, what sort of wines did you like? What wines were you interested in? You were seeking out.
At that time, I was definitely leaning towards Italian wine. I was really,
already okay.
Yeah, I really kind of fallen in love with Nebbiolo and Piemonte.
Do you remember how you got introduced to Italian wine?
Yeah, it was a Seaview Nebbiolo. That was the first one I ever had, and that.
Sorry,
do you remember like the Australian brand Seaview? They did a Nebbiolo for a little bit. They do that like, cheap sparkling.
I thought Seaview only did sparkling wine.
Yeah, there was a Nebbiolo. I picked it up.
You are joking.
Yeah, I've never seen it before.
I haven't seen Seaview since I worked at Liquorland.
Yeah.
Right, way back at the beginning.
Yeah, it might have just been a private label for Coles brand. I picked it up at a vintage sellers.
Oh, far out.
But yeah, I mean, at the time, not knowing much about wine, I really quite enjoyed it. And from there, I started to seek out a lot more. And where I was working, Pierre Cesare was heavily on those shelves, and I really quite enjoyed it.
Really?
Yeah, there's that Il Nebbiolo they do, which is carbonic.
Yeah.
Kind of a fun wine.
I barely remember any Italian wines at the Liquorland that I worked at. It's pretty small, I guess.
Yeah, I was at Dan Murphy's.
A bit bigger than that.
Yeah.
And can you remember sort of what it was about Italian wines that you liked? Why you found yourself more interested in those kinds of wines?
For the savoury flavours, for sure.
Yep.
Also, I'm a smoker, so I think maybe the tannins appealed to me a little bit. Yeah, it was definitely the savoury side and the tannins and acid as well.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you moved down to Melbourne, did you kind of relish the opportunity, being in a slightly larger city, to kind of go around to different wine shops, and were you heading out to sort of wine bars and sort of wanting to try stuff as well? And especially considering that you were, you would have had friends who you were also studying with who were in the same kind of situation. They want to explore and try different stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't making a huge amount of money at the time, so wine bars wasn't a huge option. But yeah, once started making more friends at university down here, we definitely were going around, hitting up all the wine bars that we could, trying everything new that we could. A few of my friends had been in the industry for quite a long time, so they were really good as, I guess, a guide into fun international wines that I should be drinking and places that we should be drinking.
As far as work, how were you supporting yourself when you moved down to Melbourne?
I just transferred to Dan Murphy's for, I think, 6 months.
Right. But
then I got a job at Enoteca Soleno in Carlton.
Right. So very much got into the Italian wine thing.
And it really took off when I started working for them. I really got immersed by it then.
How did you make the most of that opportunity? Did you kind of, throw yourself in and ask lots of questions?
Yeah, big time. They've got a lot of really knowledgeable people there, and you just couldn't help but be immersed in it. And they're also very, very, very willing to share all their information. And
plus, I've got an amazing museum of wines.
Oh yeah, all the Barossa, Del Barbarescos, all the different crews,
Viras and stuff like that.
Yeah, Vira, love Viro.
Probably the one that I love most of theirs is Renato Ratti.
Yeah, I mean, Ratty's good, but he loves oak.
Yeah, with a bit of age.
Yeah.
They look pretty good.
Yeah,
But,
for sure. I think Conker is one of his Barolos. That's excellent.
Yeah. So at what point did you manage to convince Tim to? Yeah, I'm assuming you came all the way down from Toowoomba.
Brisbane. I came down from Brisbane. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just a bit bored of Brisbane at the time. Just wanted a bit of a change, a bit of a shake-up. So Lawrence was down here, and I convinced my housemate at the time to move down as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So we all sort of moved
And
down.
you said, oh, what's the weather like? And Lawrence said, yeah, it's just like Brisbane.
Yeah, nice and warm, yeah, great. We moved down in the middle of winter, so it was a bit of a shock to the system.
Oh, I can imagine. So did you kind of have an idea about what you were going to do down here, or did sort of
No, not
Lawrence
really.
sort of say, why don't you, like, I'm having a great time doing the studies and learning about wine. Have you thought about doing that kind of thing? How did you get interested in and think about, following a career path in the wine yourself?
Pretty hard.
Yeah, I guess.
Was it
Just
just
hanging out with
hanging out with
Lawrence and trying new wines and getting people explaining everything to you, so you got a bit more understanding of what you're drinking and
Yeah.
and sort of that pushed me a fair bit.
Was there anything in particular that you got more interested in and you connected with on a personal level?
Yeah, just having not your stock standard wines, like Lawrence at the time was drinking a lot of like Lucci and Chobrook and stuff like that, and that kind of, I guess, spoke to me. Wine can be a little bit different, or from what I knew at the time anyway, like that you can experiment, you can have fun with it, and that sort of thing. That's more what spoke to me more than anything else.
At what point did you make the decision that, all right, I'm going to also, almost like a family business kind of thing, I'm gonna head into the wine industry, and so was the step starting at Melbourne Polytechnic and MIT as well?
Yeah, so I was scaffolding, so I just kind of got a bit over it and wanted to find something that I actually enjoyed to do. So I just started thinking about, I don't know, something with alcohol, basically, either looking at learning how to brew or the wine industry. And sort of was looking at courses and all that, and then sort of thought, well, yeah, I'll enroll at Melbourne Polytechnic, and then got a job not long after that at Galley Estate in the vineyards. So that's what I've been doing since.
Right. Okay. And you really like working out in the vineyard?
Yeah, I love it. It's great. I mean, I really don't like pruning, but
who likes pruning? Come on. It's the coldest time of the year as well.
Oh, it's not so much the weather, it's just a boring job. I spend a week not talking to anyone,
I reckon I spent one day pruning in Germany and just RSI in the hands. I was like, oh my God, I can barely move my hand.
Yeah.
It's like, can you give me one of those gas, ones that does it for you and just press a button?
Yeah, but then you lose a finger.
We have pneumatics at work. They're not that dangerous.
No, okay.
I haven't lost a finger yet, so.
Yes. Now, you mentioned that Lawrence kind of got you onto these different kinds of wines. Lawrence, I'm interested to find out how you then, your evolution went from Italian wine more into kind of low intervention wines, and you said earlier that you tasted Radicon, and that was kind of where you found out that wines could be something quite different. Is that sort of, would you get introduced with the Italian kind of low intervention wines, and then you found out that there are a lot of locally made ones like that?
Both at the same time.
Okay. Who introduced you to them, if you don't mind me asking?
Brock from Good Intentions, Brock Orford. But also we had a really good group of friends that I was at uni with that we'd meet up maybe once a month and we'd all bring a wine and cook some food, and everyone had to bring something fun. And so there was also Nick Jeffrey, he's got a small label now called Primitive Wines, and Dale Wheeler and Ren Dodd, who are Strenua. We all, I guess, kind of found that same path together at the same time, and we're all starting to bring around, no SO2 wines or really, really high whole bunch reds and skin contact whites, oxidative whites as well. Yeah, and I remember quite clearly Brock bringing around that Radicon, and it was a whole different world.
What was it about the Radicon that you found so compelling?
Just something I'd never tasted before. It was just crazy. It was all of that tannin, more tannin than some of the reds I was drinking. All of the acid and the flavors were just so crazy, so savory and weird. And I guess I can recognize it now as being a little bit of volatility or whatever else is going on with a Radicon. But it was so left of center. And that's what I was really, I think looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of Italian wine and I guess natural wine or different wines, it was, at the same time. And I probably was leaning more towards the Friulian guys, the heavy skin contact stuff.
Yeah. Well, I have a theory, and I don't think I've actually shared this theory on the podcast yet. But particularly in Melbourne and Sydney, and to a lesser extent in some of the other capitals, there is quite an interest in low intervention. I don't like using the natural. I don't like saying the end.
Yeah, me neither.
But low intervention, quite different, unfiltered, textural, savory kinds of wines, with people in their 20s, let's say. And my theory is that part of the interest in those kinds of wines is, well, firstly, I guess people are much easier to embrace them because they have no background with wine or what's supposed to be quality wine. So they're not kind of saying, well, this is different. They're saying, oh, this is just yum. I like this.
Yeah, it's just a thing.
My theory is that it's whether they're conscious of it or not, they are choosing wines that are quite different to the wines that their parents would have had.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I think that there is a generational thing, like, my parents being baby boomers, they, when they were drinking a lot of wines in the 80s sort of thing, 70s and 80s, that was when kind of dry table wines started to really come on, and particularly white wines, whereas their parents would have drunk fortified wines. And so I think there is a generational thing. Do you think that, as far as consumers, but also the people making wine, like young winemakers in Australia, are more interested in that because, do you think that plays into it a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone's looking to rebel a little bit, maybe. I mean, that wasn't a thing for us. I don't think I was looking to not do what people before me were doing. It was just new and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, it was opening into the finer side of wine as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to start drinking some of those like skin contact stuff, and I found it quite refreshing, or not really refreshing, but
not literally refreshing, but more figuratively refreshing.
Yeah, and then that sort of led me into the world of fine wine, and
that's interesting.
It was an opening into the whole wine industry for me.
That's interesting. A lot of people, possibly people in their 30s and 40s maybe, they are much more like myself, for example. I've worked in the wine industry for 12 years, and or at least the first sort of 10 years or so was very much in that classic, what I call classic style of wines. And it's only been the last sort of 2 or 3 years that I've been more interested in low intervention wines, trying to keep some balance though. Like I don't think I necessarily sit in either camp. Like I don't drink either wine exclusively. I try to be open-minded and drink everything. Whereas I find that in a lot of cases, people it's either one or the other, and they kind of are a bit negative towards the other, which is I think it's interesting.
It creates quite a big divide as well, and then then it sort of
it's unnecessary conflict.
It starts infighting, and why not just let people do whatever they're doing and what they want to do?
Yeah. Why can't people just enjoy the wines?
Yeah, and that's what it's about.
Have to worry too much about what one other person said and another person said, and anyway, getting off topic. So with the studies, Lawrence, studies in winemaking, obviously, Tim's followed a fairly straight path.
Yeah.
Came down to Melbourne, started studying, got a job at Galley, wicked. What about the winemaking path for you? Like, did you get much work? Were you doing any vintages anywhere?
Yeah, my first vintage was at Clyde Park in Bannockburn.
Yep.
That was in 2013. Yeah, 2013.
Okay.
So did whirlwind vintage there. We harvested everything in 2.5 weeks. We were doing 20-hour days. It was just myself and Scott Gerard, who works at Glen Lofty in the Pyrenees now.
Yep.
That was a pretty hectic kind of intro into what happens in the cellar. But it was good fun. From there, I started to do a little bit of part-time work at Wedgetail in Yarra Valley.
Right,
in the vineyard.
Okay.
In the off-season. And then I went to Oak Ridge in the Yarra Valley for a vintage.
Really?
2014, yeah.
With Mr. Bicknell.
Yep.
How was that experience?
It was good. Great setup there. It was really interesting to see all the different parcels of fruit from around the Yarra Valley and how they were quite different.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I had a very narrow-minded view of what the Yarra Valley was.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it was the Valley floor. But seeing a lot of that upper Yarra Valley Pinot and Chardonnay was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Where did the osmosis of Dirty Black Denim start? You know, did one of you have the idea, or was it something that you discussed and kind of went, why don't we do sort of our own little project?
Yeah, we discussed it a little bit leading up to 2014 vintage. With Tim obviously working at Galley Estate and knowing that they were selling a bit of fruit, we thought that it might be a little bit fun to just buy a small amount of Sauvignon Blanc and try and make a fun little orange wine for ourselves.
Mm.
And we ended up getting a little bit more fruit than we expected, which was almost a commercial volume. So while both of us were trying to work vintage in 2014, we made a Sauvignon Blanc and a Shiraz.
Mm.
And they both turned out pretty well. So we thought, why not show these around?
So what was the idea, you know, considering that you possibly were, well, I guess Tim to a certain extent was involved with the growing of the grapes, but not necessarily being able to make 100% of the decisions. What was what did you sort of have in mind as far as how you wanted to craft the wine once you got the grapes?
It was all about making a heavy skin contact Sauvignon Blanc, basically. Get it home, get it into the shed, destem it and ferment it.
Yeah, it was just sort of whatever worked. I mean,
yeah, we
weren't thinking too heavily.
Yeah, like we knew how to make wine, but we'd never really done it with the ability to do whatever we wanted. If that makes sense. With complete control. Yeah, basically all we wanted to do was make a Radicon.
Right.
You know? Yeah, just ferment it on skins, ferment it hot, and make a tannic white.
It's just a shame they didn't grow any Ribolla Jala.
That would be lovely. It's in the country.
So that was 2014, and then did you sort of start to think, oh, we'd like to sort of work more with Italian grape varieties because you know, and sort of I want to combine my love of Italian wines and low intervention wines, and sort of see what I can do with Australian grown Italian grapes.
Yeah, for sure. Tim had worked at Galley they've got Fiano out there. I started to drink quite a lot. That's
at the Sunbury Vineyard.
Yeah, the Sunbury Vineyard. Sorry.
And the Heathcote Vineyard has stuff like Sangiovese,
Shiraz,
Nebbiolo.
Yeah. Viognier, Chardonnay.
Montepulciano.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, okay. First crop for them was 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks really good.
I'd be interested in
pretty
having
exciting.
a look at that.
Yeah.
And so 2015, how did the sort of the Dirty Black Denim range change?
Yeah, well,
did you increase by much?
Yeah, we did. We got a pretty good reception from the first two little wines that we made. So we thought, well, why don't we?
No doubt you sold it to your mates.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just sort of a mate.
That is also one of the benefits of having the great community around those kinds of wines is that, you know, everyone can, you know, you're all hanging out with each other, and so you make your wines and go, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And go,
yeah,
great, I love it.
Totally.
You know, good price. People are going to love it.
Yeah,
give me some.
Yeah, we got in contact with Chalmers. That's the easiest way, I think, to try and play with some of those alternate varieties.
Yep.
Leading up to the start of 2015 vintage, I jumped in the car, drove up to Mildura and picked up half a ton of Fiano.
Wow.
Yeah, but we increased by more than double. I think we went from 800 kilo to 4 ton.
Yeah, that's a decent jump.
Yeah. We split it off into quite a lot of wines.
Okay.
So it was quite easy to kind of sell through each individual one rather than be stuck on, 3,000 litres of Fiano or Sav, or something like that.
Mm. Considering that you're both still working full time?
Yeah.
For the love of the wine. That's why we do it. And so 2016 increased by much more?
Yeah, what do we do? Just shy of 10 ton.
Far out. And, you're now making enough as far as commercial volume. You have a distributor, which is
we do.
pretty exciting.
Stu Northey with Anonymous Wines,
Mm-hmm.
who's been awesome. We just did that. When was that? Not that long ago. We've only 2 or 3 wines have gone through Stu so far.
Mm-hmm. Probably some of the slightly higher volume ones, I would think.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping us find our feet as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're both still working full time.
Sure.
And we're not the most organised people with the back office kind of stuff, so it's nice to have organised people do that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, do you find that having the opportunity to work in the vineyards, at Galley, I guess, but does that kind of, are you able to sort of think a little bit more about choosing where you buy grapes, does that sort of impact on like how the vineyard is worked depending on where you buy it from, and that leads to the kind of quality or the sort of fruit that you want?
Yeah, definitely. I think as everyone sort of says, it all starts in the vineyard, and that's sort of what we're trying to focus on mostly at the moment is just find good fruit. And we're leasing a small vineyard up in Macedon as well at the moment.
Really? Whereabouts?
It's in Bainton, so it's about 15-20 minutes north of Lancefield.
Okay.
So just on the border of sort of Heathcote and Macedon.
Up near where sort of Granite Hills is and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's growing in that vineyard?
So it's mostly Chardonnay. It's about 40% Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got Gewurz. Then it's just split between Gewurz, Pinot Noir, Shiraz, and then we've got a bit of a mixed Cabernet block. So it's mostly Cab Sav with a few rows of Cab Franc, a row of Merlot, and a row of Malbec. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And the leasing arrangement allows you to sort of work at the kind of the way that you guys want to.
Yeah, and that's a big influence for me is for doing it as well. Just sort of not trying to use a lot less chemicals and just treat it kind of right, give it a bit of love and see how it goes.
Have you guys taken a crop off that yet?
Yeah, we got Shiraz. We got about a barrel of Shiraz this year. 300 litres of Shiraz. But we took it over halfway through the growing season,
right.
So the whole vineyard sort of got a bit of a dodgy prune, and yeah, it hasn't seen any nutrients or anything for quite a while.
Right.
And then I was quite, because it had been left for 2 years, and then it got pruned really badly, and then it sort of got left again. And we came in late through the growing season. I just sort of decided to make a choice and just sort of left it without spraying at all, anything.
Mm-hmm.
All it got is a bit of water, and I mean, we lost a lot of crop from it, but we got a bit of Shiraz, which was good, and it was just sort of interesting to see how the vineyard handled all that, like just being left alone, and yeah.
So I'm assuming we're going to see more wines next year, most likely.
Yeah. I mean, we were having a chat about this the other day in terms of what we're going to do for next year. We're definitely going to focus more on the vineyard and less on buying fruit.
Right.
But I don't think we're going to increase too much in size. I think we're going to really focus on nailing quality, getting everything done perfect, and then incrementally go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll probably drop a few wines that we've been making pretty regularly. But the stock's I love Sauvignon Blanc, so we'll always make that from Sunbury. Sangiovese from Heathcote for sure. And then rest from the vineyard. I'm not sure what else we'll do from there. Trying to track down some Nebbiolo.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, and Fiano.
Fantastic. Well, look, I have had the good fortune of trying a few of the wines. I'm obviously looking forward to trying more. What's the best way for people to follow you guys and support you as far as buying the wines?
So we're on Twitter, but I don't really use it that often. I don't really understand Twitter. Mostly Instagram.
Yep.
So at Dirty Black Denim Winemakers.
Right.
I believe there's an underscore in between denim and winemakers.
Okay.
I think. And our email address is dbdwinemakers@gmail.com if anyone wants to get in touch.
The best thing to do is to get in contact with the guys and find out where the wines are available. I think, particularly if you're in Melbourne, the wines will be available in plenty of good spots.
You can always pop into the Alps and say hi.
Yes.
Around.
Yeah.
It's pretty much our unofficial cellar door. Thanks, Lyndon.
Look, guys, I really do appreciate you coming on today. Thank you very much for sharing the story. And I'm excited to see what comes out next year.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Lawrence and Tim for joining me on this episode of the Vincast. I have been James Scaresbrook, otherwise known as the Intrepid Wino. And of course, thank you listeners for joining us on this episode. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can find me on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm at Intrepid Wino. And you can also follow the podcast on Twitter at the Vincast. Come and visit my YouTube channel where you can see lots of tasting videos. I've actually done one of the Dirty Black Denim wines, a couple of bottles that Lawrence gave me, and that is at Intrepid Wino. Please hit that subscribe button, watch some videos, hit the like buttons, and maybe leave a comment or two. I'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on lots of different platforms, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, or any other podcast hosting app. And subscribing means that you get the newest episode as soon as it becomes available. And I'd love for you to leave me a 5-star rating and a review and let me know what you enjoy about the show. Of course, as always, the information is available at intrepidwino.com. You can listen to every episode. You can read some about some of my journeys in the world of wine and watch the videos as well. But please get in contact with me at thevincast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. But until episode 100, bye.